This series is the story of the new amphibious Arctic vehicle project named Bernard. Building on ideas, skills and questions raised during the Alan lifeboat conversion, as a team we will share all those moments needed to get Bernard up north onto the ice and making himself useful. We'll start off in a place and on a topic that this episode is not about. This is hardly for the first time with me on this channel, and I'm throwing my belongings off the shipping containers, not because I finally let Jet Ski Guy, our most beloved comment section troll, finally get to me, but because I'm finishing off the move out of the boatyard. Maintaining and financing the boatyard space and the new workshop has gone on for much longer than intended, so this is good. The advantage of making much of my own storage racking and shelves is that I can quickly disassemble and reuse the CLS timber at the other end. Before the main event, people of the channel, a brief moment of respect for one of many old friends. On a suitable, torrentially wet southern English summer day, rewind your minds to the earliest days of the channel, lockdown hair, and this repurposed and rather wobbly folding table I use as my boatyard outside workbench, correctly coloured, of course. It's played host to hundreds of deeply profound and important incidences of cutting, grinding, bashing and all sorts of other things. But this deeply mediocre yet plucky part of our story is going to be retired. And by retired, I mean the brutally ruined surface will end up in landfill, legs cut off for spare tube, and remaining steel will be scrapped. And to think I found it on the balcony of my apartment when I first moved in. The previous owners never recognised its true potential. Right then, good folks, dry your eyes and let's swoop over to a much sunnier day and a new workshop yard. The carbon fibre pattern for the Bernard vehicle lower shell is the right way up, which must be confusing for it, but it won't be for long. The inside is what was laminated against the original solid heavy mould, so a mix of loose plastic film and peel ply. Okay, I'm now going to reinforce around this lip from the inside, which I couldn't get access to before, but I need to make sure that the whole thing is sat square. Otherwise we'll end up fixing in a twist, and that would be an absolute disaster given the amount of work that's got into this. I couldn't get access until this mould was off the mould. I didn't want to build up the perimeter more on the outside. It does need stiffening further, so we'll do that now. I need to set the mould perfectly square. It's not thick and torsionally stiff enough to hold its own shape. Clearly the gravel is unknown and uneven, so I'm going to set it on wooden battens. The battens I recovered from the original heavy mould. Non-wasteful reuse is the name of this particular game. The mould is so light I can lift each corner and initially get it sat on a couple of straight fence posts, one at each end, resting on a lattice of battens. Then I can use a spirit level to get those two parallel posts perfectly level. Initially I used a load of battens to temporarily get the mould sat high up enough above the post. Then, once happy with the orientation and angle, could get those out the way and the mould sat accurately. So it doesn't really matter whether it's on a slant like that. The only thing that really matters is that the two ends are square, and that means that the whole thing is not twisted. Then I'll peel back the sacrificial ply a bit, but not totally just yet. As long as you can find an edge, nylon peel ply is easy to remove from an epoxy resin part, but if you can't find a corner or edge, it's a challenge. And now for the reason the mould must be set square and true. We're about to permanently fix that perimeter into a more rigid position. Luckily I've got a whole load of offcuts and spare end sections of glass fibre, so we're going to use all sorts of different ones to basically go around that perimeter, reinforce it probably to about 5 or 6 layers, and I'll use some of that old potted up epoxy that really needs using up as well. This is the space that will soon be the mould's, through its own set of doors. I have my vast, long rolling table on the other half of the room, but it's covered in stuff at present, so the floor is an old norm I'm well used to be working on. Old habits die hard. I laid up half a dozen layers of both woven and CSM glass fibre, and also some spare carbon around those edges. No vacuum or clamping consolidation, which I know is rather low end on the sophistication scale, but merely thin rolling and finger pressure is a common technique for non-critical parts. That cured overnight, and it dripped, since I was liberal with the resin, and now picked my moment to get rid of the rest of the peel ply. It wouldn't hurt to leave it on, but with the resin in it, there's quite a few extra kilograms, and lighter means more manageable for the mobile mould. The edges are easy, but getting the ply away from the middle, which was beyond my reach, was quite the puzzle, but I did manage it. The mould wouldn't enjoy me stepping inside it right now, sat up on those fence posts. Speaking of excess and unnecessary oozing green gunge, when I am tirelessly throwing things off shipping containers, or skiing across the Arctic, or writing a whimsical voiceover script, or even using an angle grinder, I know what I always reach for. You know those moments when you wake up in the morning and you just need that little bit of extra kapow, or maybe in the evening when you want to really simmer down towards a good rest, a good sleep. I know what I always reach for, and it's always a good glass of... No, It's not one of those special influencer wellness potions. It's probably not going to be, particularly in the morning, one of these either. I have just tricked you. I'm not going to be giving you a horrible promotional wellness read from one of those podcasters that you probably know and love so much. Instead, I'm going to ask you a little favor. It's not going to be a favor that costs you any money at all. Absolutely $0.00, pounds, whichever currency you deal in. What I am going to ask you just to do is check whether you are subscribed to the channel. I've noticed on the stats, we get quite a lot of, in YouTube Studio, we get quite a lot of background information about who is watching and what their watching habits are and where they came from, how many times they watch different videos. It's actually really useful. And I found that there are a large glut, particularly in the last few months, as I've been altering the type of content that I've been doing, hopefully in the same spirit of things, but obviously trying to rev up the new parts of the channel and this new project. I've been noticing there are people who are watching, not just for the first time, but they're coming back to watch multiple videos, but are not necessarily subscribing. So these are not viewers who are bouncing out of the channel. They are clearly interested in watching what's going on. If you can just go down, it's probably somewhere there or somewhere there. If you could do that whole subscribe thing, I know I try not to push and go on and on about that too much on the channel, because I feel that generally if people want to, that they will. Maybe just this one little reminder, if you would like to see what's going on in the channel, you can always unsubscribe later on if it's not for you, but just give it a go. It'd be really nice if you could hit the subscribe thing. I think there's also like a bell notification thing. I really don't like doing the whole like, comment, subscribe thing in every single minute of a video. So anyway, I'll try and get back to the video now, the actual proper content. But yes, for those of you who are keen on the channel but haven't quite hit the subscribe button yet, now's the time. Cheers. There we go, that's more like it. An entire bin liner of peel ply gone, and I won't subject you to another rant about single-use material wastage inherent in composites manufacturing. There were a couple of stubborn rip sections of peel ply I just couldn't get to, but do not fear, I am carrying 2 large sticks. I promise there's a good reason. We need to make the frame, and I want something that won't warp or otherwise start affecting the dimensions of the mould. CLS is infamous for bending, so the pre-treated dead straight fence post it is. I could use a wide box section glass fibre, but it costs a fortune. I forgot to say, I also went round with edging tape to protect them from me and me from them. Many duct tapes peel back when bent back on themselves as edging, so I found that this foil tape is much keener to stay put. I'm not going to bolt on the fence posts. Partly to avoid holing and damaging the perimeter of the mould, which will later need to maintain a perfect vacuum seal, partly as I want the frame to be secure yet able to have the mould, quote unquote, float on top, not rigidly yanked down on it, and partly since I had a dozen expired mastic tubes of low modulus flexible adhesive sealant that was left over from sealing Alan the lifeboat's shell together, and I want rid of it. Good, that goes on well, exactly 4 tubes used in total, and the fence post can be pressed and wiggled up, down and secure against the right angle of the guttering. And the other side. It's not critical that the 2 posts are exactly the same distance from the front or back, but let's do this properly, eh? Then the CLS timber does make an appearance, but only as a temporary stand-in. I don't want inadvertent bending or skewing of the central sides of the mould, the most flexible sections, either through weight of wood or my own work. So I'm fixing a couple of CLS pieces across the middle at consistent correct width and checking it's all still level. Whoops, that's a pain to retrieve. More fence posts needed to be cut to size. No angle grinder action this time around, I confess, but a mitre chop saw surely can suffice. Tell me if I'm wrong and if you're livid with grinder deprived footage in the comment section. Now for super long screws, some pilot holes and carefully completing the frame. I bet you thought I'd forgotten to edit in the voiceover for this clip. It's an eerie silence to just let the footage breathe on this channel. Don't worry, I'll keep rabbiting on, but not at the workshop. Another tangent back to the boatyard. In fact, my very, very last time from there. Because we are finally empty in the 3rd and final area I rented. All the remaining bits and bobs are now in the back of this fine vehicle. Well, it might not seem that momentous, but it was around 6 years ago that me, 2 friends, George and James, and of course Alan the lifeboat first turned up in the Dauntless Boatyard. And obviously Alan set off a few years ago up the coast and is now up in Shetland. Hopefully some more news on that soon, but it does mean that my use of the yard became workshop only, and now that evolution is over. Yeah, I mean, it's momentous on a scale of somewhere between low to moderate, but it's still quite something. The yard staff have been enormously patient and helpful with me over the years, and there's the what was it, Bernard's Mould's berthing chamber now all cleared and ready for a boat to go into. Honestly, I don't think there are that many yards left, particularly in the south of England, where it is truly boatyard first and marina second. There is actually a marina next door. I've always loved the sense here that you can just get on with stuff, not too many questions asked, as long as you have some common sense and general decency. And so if you are looking to work on a boat and you're worried about marinas being snobby about your type of boat, or in particular lifeboats tend to get a lot of snobby responses, give them a go down near the Thames estuary. Good team, they're working hard to renovate the yard at the moment. So this is my final cheers and thank you to Dauntless and for the 6 years that I've been here.
Sadly, the yard owner and also Dean, who expertly welded together and installed Alan's custom stainless steel exhaust I designed, were out when I was saying my goodbyes. The chandlery team were there though, working on a V12 E-Type. And so that is that, through the famous leaning gate for one last time and keys returned to the front desk. My time at the yard has been a wonderful mixture of exciting, educational, maddening, tiring and satisfying. This channel wouldn't exist without their team's warm welcome, patience and flexibility. Yet more sentimentality aside, let's get Bernard on his wheels. And to do that, I've securely attached thick OSB boards to each corner of the frame. These will be more than enough for the wheels, but also as braces to keep the frame square. Much screwing was done, then placing up these large, robust off-road casters. Obviously bolts are needed for these, not screws. My past habit, common amongst boat owners for using stainless steel for practically everything, can happily take a more economical backseat here as I delve into my much more limited supply of normal 10-9 steel nuts, washers and bolts. Good. I did that 4 times, since doing it 3 or 5 times would be obtuse to an extent that even this loyal and whimsical channel audience might get cross at. The mould isn't the right way up for long. In 2 stages it'll be back upside down, and once again I'm grateful for the fact that scratches don't matter, for there are to be 2 additional coats of resin prior to polishing. It's incredibly lightweight, but a chain to allow a controlled descent is needed. I may think about some sort of void fill for inside there, or just tape in a tarp, otherwise unwanted things might set up home underneath. But trying to seal it might trap in moisture, so I'm unsure for now. What would you do? Something? Nothing? It rolls around very happily, not like a disobedient shopping trolley as I was concerned that it might. I'll leave you with this exceedingly good news, and with this extra good news. The rigidity of the shell is now such that on an uneven ground, it's stiff enough to lift a wheel up in the air. Great. Bye.